terrors in the night. The Lord showed me great and fearful events that will soon take place. I saw a mighty goat rise up from the west to claim dominion over everything. So swift was his destruction. That mighty goat is the kingdom of Greece. That great horn upon its head is its king. He will devastate the Persian Empire. The Lord has spoken. This man shall be great.
No one had such an impact on ancient history quite like Alexander the Great, the archetypal warrior and romanticized hero. His famous campaigns across Asia, Egypt, and the Middle East set the stage for the building blocks of the New Testament, directly shaping the geopolitical landscape into which Jesus revolutionized and Paul systematized. Alexander is known mostly for his world conquests, but he was also a catalyst, fulfilling divine providence and pushing the story forward. Much like Cyrus the Great before him, the Persian king who freed the Jews from exile, Alexander too is a figure of prophecy, cryptically predicted in the apocalyptic literature of the prophet Daniel. The birth of Alexander took place in 356 BC to the royals of Macedon, a realm in the northern Balkans which was seen as a barbaric backwater by the intellectuals of Athens and Corinth to the south. On the same day Alexander was born, according to later legends, the famous temple to Artemis in Ephesus was tragically burned down. Plutarch says that Artemis was too busy delivering Alexander to attend to the well-being of her own shrine, linking his arrival, in the Greek mind, to the powerful will of the gods. It seems Alexander was born at the opportune time to shake up the foundations. The civilizations of the Greek mainland were full of proud but weakened city-states, greatly worn down by nearly 2 centuries of relentless warfare against the mighty Persian Empire to the east, and civil war among each other. The crippling Peloponnesian War had ended only a few decades prior, a nearly 30-year war, leaving the glorious city-states of Athens and Sparta full of tired men. But one man took advantage of these weakened states to the south and is crucial for our understanding of Alexander's rise, and that is his own father, Philip II. As the mighty king of Macedon himself, Philip would begin to dominate the weakened southern states with his own influence. Being a hardened war veteran himself, Philip had the most aggressive war policies in all of the Hellenic world, financing a standing, highly disciplined army while the rest of Greece scoffed at him from afar. Philip's ambition was simple and obvious: make Macedon the sole military superpower of the Aegean, and create a dynasty for Alexander to inherit.
Someday, my son, this will be yours.
Philip is famously credited with optimizing the Macedonian phalanx, a nearly impenetrable infantry unit capable of winning against overwhelming numbers. This strategizing gave Philip and Macedon the best warriors with the best technology, and Alexander stood to benefit from it all. Philip also crucially sought to incorporate the culture and aesthetic of Athens into Macedonian culture to create a shared heritage between the larger Greek world. Most famous of these reforms was when he summoned the iconic philosopher Aristotle to be a personal tutor to the young Alexander. As a student of Plato himself, Aristotle arguably gave Alexander the most privileged private education in the ancient world, teaching him the natural sciences, ethics, rhetoric, and the laws of war. Alexander also became educated in the epic stories of Homer, always carrying a copy of Homer's work with him to consult like a sacred text. More than anyone else, Alexander idolized the mythical Achilles as the ideal hero of glorious destiny, pledging that he himself would be the next Achilles. While Alexander obtained an elite education from Aristotle, the southern cities of Athens and Thebes began to vehemently reject Philip's influence and his posturing, seeing him as a barbarian threat from the backwoods, a wild man who could only ever wish to be Greek. But Philip's influence soon became anything but dismissible. For the Athenians, Philip was becoming an existential threat, and unless they resisted Philip together, they feared their democratic sovereignty would soon be dismantled. Alexander observed all of these events as he grew up, witnessing how the smooth-speaking statesman, one by one, struggled to resist his father's advent onto the world stage. Macedon was becoming great. A last-ditch effort was formed in the year 338 BC to ward off Philip's inevitable domination of the south. No one hated Philip more than Demosthenes of Athens, a famous orator and politician who led the military resistance against Macedon at this time. Through a set of successful speeches called the Philippics, Demosthenes mustered some 30,000 infantry from allied cities in a short amount of time, in an attempt to check Philip's progress in one decisive battle. In response, Philip met Demosthenes with an equal size on the battlefield, and gave a young Alexander charge of his elite cavalry ranks. The opposing armies met near the city of Chaeronea in Boeotia, which would become Alexander's first open battle at only 18 years old. According to the historian Plutarch, Alexander demonstrated mastery over the battlefield. When Philip's units feigned a tactical retreat to lure the enemy forward, this created a discoordinated gap in their line, giving Alexander a brief opportunity to exploit this positional weakness. He launched a daring charge with his cavalry, successfully flanking the Sacred Band of Thebes, an elite corps of warriors famously thought to be invincible. Demosthenes and his generals fled the battle back to Athens, handing Alexander his first public victory and a humiliation to everyone else, earning even greater recognition in this battle than Philip did. With all possible Greek resistance shattered, Philip and Alexander now had a stranglehold on the south. Many thought that since Philip was a barbarian, he would simply destroy Athens for pleasure, but what he did instead revealed the depth of his true ambitions. Philip opted for an alliance, not just with Athens, but with all the Greek city-states. In a political maneuver that no one could refuse by force, Philip officially called for a Hellenic assembly to meet in the city of Corinth the following year, where terms of peace, albeit a forced peace, would give birth to a great alliance, with Philip at the helm.
Men of Hellas, I urge you to put aside your differences. From this day forth, we will be a unified people, a Hellenic people. My friends, we must enter into agreement not to fight each other, but to turn our strength towards the existential threat to us all. Not Macedonia, but Persia.
As Alexander observed Philip's draw, the years of harsh militarization in Macedon finally became clear to the Greeks. Drawing on their shared history, Philip recalled the devastating memory of the old Greco-Persian wars from the previous century, how the kings Darius and Xerxes had raided and subjugated the lands of Greek heritage, especially the western territories of Asia Minor. It was Xerxes himself who burned Athens to the ground in a quest to make Greece a Persian state. For these powerful reasons, Philip urged to declare war on Persia, with Macedon leading the charge. The representatives at the council accepted Philip's demands and officially formed what came known to history as the League of Corinth, a massive Greek coalition backed with financing, ships, and pan-Hellenic men, bent on plundering the Persian Empire to the east. And just like that, Philip successfully united the Greek world through a combination of coercion and presence, a lesson Alexander would never forget. We now find ourselves in 336 BC, the following year. Philip was tying up loose diplomatic ends before he set out from Macedon, attending the wedding of his daughter Cleopatra, making a ceremonial entrance into the Grand Theater, unarmed and clad in white. Philip made the rare choice of dismissing his personal bodyguards in order to appear more approachable. But when all seemed at peace, one of Philip's disgruntled guards, a man named Pausanias, took advantage of the vulnerability and, withdrawing a hidden dagger, stabbed Philip in the chest, killing him instantly. The venue went into shock, and chaos rippled throughout the Greek world. At the height of Philip's power, in the blink of an eye, Macedon's own champion was dead, and everything was called into question. But a young Alexander had no time to mourn. He acted quickly. With the shocking assassination of Philip, The future of Macedon had plunged into chaotic uncertainty. The great expedition into Asia was suddenly put on hiatus. Some said that Philip's assassin, Pausanias, acted alone, but others were just as convinced that Olympias, Alexander's own mother, had the motive and the means to calculate Philip's demise. After all, Philip had 7 wives, and Alexander wasn't the only son. News of the assassination had apparently reached Athens through secret, expedited channels. Demosthenes was so overcome with joy that Philip was dead that he quickly inspired the Athenians to flip on Macedon while it was still unstable. Meanwhile, the young Alexander made his own bid for the throne, but needed strong allies who would support him against other suitors. Luckily, Alexander had the help of his father's most powerful loyalists. Men like Antipater, one of the most seasoned Macedonian generals, immediately rode to Alexander's side and declared him the king of Macedon. Recalling Alexander's heroism at the Battle of Chaeronea, the rest followed suit, and Alexander's competition mysteriously disappeared. In 336 BC, at just 20 years of age, Alexander took Philip's place as the king of Macedon, pledging to use the wisdom he learned from Aristotle and the example carved out by Philip before him. The historian Arrian narrates a few minor revolts that happened, but Alexander put them down quickly, eager to maintain the momentum of Macedon's military state and to bring it into the future. Intel soon reached Alexander that, in the south, Athens and Thebes were again openly revolting, another last-ditch wave of resistance once again led by Demosthenes, just as before. At the advice of his generals, Alexander marched his forces quickly down to Thebes at a breakneck pace, shocking everyone, including those who were not quite ready to fight again. According to Plutarch, Alexander elected for a scorched earth policy to make an example to the rest of the world, completely destroying the ancient city of Thebes and promising a similar fate to anyone breaking the agreements previously set at the League of Corinth. Thousands were killed, more still were sold into slavery, and nearly every building was razed to the ground, a brutal price to pay for underestimating the heir of Philip. In a fit of rage, Alexander then marched onto Athens.
Demosthenes once called me a boy. I will show him that I am a man by the time I reach the walls of Athens!
After Alexander completely destroyed Thebes, the Athenians did a complete 180 and surrendered to him, begging for his leniency. He accepted their submission, but demanded Demosthenes' head. A tense round of negotiations soon led to renewed terms, which ended up giving Alexander a better deal than what he asked for. Instead, Athens installed pro-Alexander senators, removed the dissidents, and reaffirmed their loyalty to him as Philip's heir, pledging to support him in the revived campaigns into Persia and continuing in the League of Corinth. The other Greek states followed suit, and the show was back on the road. Alexander would lead the League of Corinth as its hegemon into Asia the following year, and Demosthenes would wither away into obscurity, never to bother him again. In late 335 BC, just before Alexander set out into the Persian Empire, one last event occurred which would set his personal destiny into motion. Pulling him aside, his mother Olympias decided that now was the right time to make to him a proper confession.
Go with courage, my son. You are destined for greatness, but know this, your true father is not Philip. No, on the night you were conceived, I was visited by Zeus, the great god.
It seems that Alexander believed this. In a world where some still held on to the poetic majesty of Homer's writings, this story planted a seed in Alexander which would grow with each passing day. Perhaps the age of heroes from mythology had returned. Imbued in him was a divine destiny that, like Achilles, would make him invincible. In the spring of 334 BC, Alexander and the Corinthian League forces crossed the Hellespont, the narrow strait separating Europe from Asia. With some 40,000 infantry, they marched into the Persian-held Asia, where many Greek colonies resided. Word of Alexander's unexpected arrival spread swiftly, even reaching the Persian king Darius III, who scrambled to mobilize his forces. The Roman historian Arrian provides a detailed look into Alexander's mind during this campaign, highlighting the importance of his worldview. Arrian tells us that when he landed on Asian soil, an armor-clad Alexander was the first to disembark and storm the beach, echoing the heroes of Homer's tales who had first come to Troy in this way, some 800 years earlier. He immediately built an altar to Zeus as gratitude for a safe sea voyage, with the new revelation of his divine heritage. The ancient city of Troy was Alexander's first destination, where he naturally visited the sacred grave of Achilles, paying honor to his legacy. This is when Alexander began to style himself as the new Achilles. Bolstered by the myth of his divine paternity, a new demigod like Achilles was walking the earth once more. Alexander then took some of the ceremonial weapons from the Trojan war site into his own possession, symbolically taking up the mantle of Achilles. From then on, virtually every colony in the Western Asian territory, called Ionia to the Greeks, submitted to Alexander without a fight. Alexander's forwarding scouts then alerted him that an official challenge had come from the east. A massive Persian garrison was awaiting him on the opposite side of the Granicus River, ready for a fight. According to Arrian, the most powerful Persian commanders in the region had assembled at the Granicus River, though the great king himself, Darius III, was absent. In his stead were many relatives in key positions. The most important among these was Spithridates, the satrap or governor of Lydia. Spithridates controlled the domain that Alexander was after, and with some 20,000 infantry and cavalry, the Persians had superior tactical location and numbers, forcing Alexander to weigh his options.
I must win!
This battle would make or break the Corinthian League's mission. If they couldn't overpower the Persians here, the entire campaign would fail, including everything that Philip stood for. An early victory at the Granicus was crucial. Each force was garrisoned near the river in the dark. Alexander led the cavalry on the right wing, with his rows of elite phalanx making up the center line. After being advised to wait for a calculated strike, Alexander disagreed and tried an unorthodox tactic. He plunged his right wing straight into the cold water, making an unexpected advance. As he marched in a southward wedge across the Granicus, the Persian left wing was lured away from their high strategic position. The Persians engaged him at the riverbank, hurling light javelins and arrows. Alexander's wing took considerable early losses upon crossing, but soon made a devastating contact that pushed the Persians back. At this moment, the center line of the elite phalanx units crossed and engaged with the Persian center. The phalanx was unstoppable, while Alexander's southward wedge created a gap into the center line, a perfect opportunity to flank and cut the Persian forces in half, just as Alexander had once done. According to Plutarch, a well-thrown javelin pierced the front joint of Alexander's breastplate, narrowly preventing a full chest puncture. Spithridates, the governor of the territory, charged at Alexander from a blind spot. Lifting up a mighty scimitar, Spithridates landed a devastating blow on the crest of Alexander's helmet, splitting the armor and even cutting into some of Alexander's hair. As he reeled from this blow, confused, Spithridates lifted his scimitar to strike Alexander again. But just before he could land a final strike, a fellow Macedonian warrior intercepted and cut Spithridates down, saving Alexander's life. With the Persian left wing losing significant ground early on, Alexander led a decisive charge through the center line and collapsed the army's core. Both wings turned and fled from the Granicus, with multiple key Persian nobles lying dead by the river, including Darius III's own brother, brother-in-law, and son-in-law. Macedon was victorious! The Battle of the Granicus was a defining moment for Alexander, who was now all the more eager to advance down the Asian coast. Greek cities began to join him without fear, hailing him as a liberator and the hero of retribution. For the first time in over a century, Persia had been pushed out of Asia Minor.
Too easy.
Alexander tasted the blood that his father Philip had craved, and the established mission of the League of Corinth was coming to a successful end. But Alexander still had questions in his mind. How far could he actually go in decimating the Persian world? There was Syria, Egypt, Jerusalem, and even Babylon. If he was truly the son of Zeus, then he would test his guts against the entire world.
We will continue. I will strike down Darius myself and all of Persia. Everything that is his will soon belong to me.